What's up, everybody? Good evening to you. I am very excited to be joining you this evening for a special live interview. I've been on for the past couple weeks reading The Children of Arc to you. If you haven't been watching, here's a little clip of what you've been missing. But I've been reading from my latest book, The Children of Arc, which is a fantasy epic about a demon slayer. And that is just, the book that I've been reading out of for a while. So thank you for supporting Drop a Line and Pen Night Radio all these years. And of course, One True Promotion. So we are on tonight with a guest I'm very excited to introduce to you all. Her name is Megan Earling. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But if not, she'll be on in a minute to correct me. And Megan, I met at an event in Mantua, or Winona, rather, New Jersey. It was a craft fair. Multiple vendors of all different talents were there, and there were multiple authors there tabling. I, of course, was there with Nick from One True Promotion. We were tabling both our books, and I was able to go around and meet some other interesting authors as well. But Megan has a great selection of novels. She is a romance author primarily. Every book on the table was romance, which is an absolutely booming genre right now, as we know. So that was very, very exciting. And I was very impressed talking to Megan at just her professionalism and her skill and how she's already doing such a great job early into her career to really, just understand the process, understand how to get books sold, and to really just the thing that impressed me the most was just how captivated I was by her pitch whenever I picked up one of her titles. And I couldn't walk away from the table without buying one. So she's here to talk to us tonight, and I think that's really cool. So I'm going to play y'all an old promo that needs to be updated. But some of you may remember, this is Drop a Line, the stories behind the stories. And we are live. Good evening.
Hi.
Good to see you. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. I'm having a great time. I'm excited we could meet up and chat for a while. But it's really great to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be on. Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure, really. So, Megan, as I was saying, you have just, a fantastic, way about you, just as
Thank you.
an author. I was very excited, meeting you and talking to you at the table. For one thing, I love to meet, new talent. I love to meet talented people, period. And just like, if I wasn't, handing out cards and promoting our books and services and just seeing what everybody was about, I would still enjoy, talking about that, meeting people and being like, cool, how do you do this thing?
Mm-hmm.
You exuded such a command of your whole mission statement and your genre that I think takes a lot of authors a lot of time to, figure out. I've been doing this for 7 years, and there were things to this day that I still have to learn about, brand making and all that. So I just wanted to let you know real quick that in person, you made a very strong impression.
Oh, thank you.
And so we got some people watching already. That is good.
Oh, nice.
It looks like you're bringing in a lot of support. So,
yay. Hello, everyone.
yeah. So thank you for watching a One True Promotion. This is our old program, Drop a Line, and we, have been doing author interviews for years. So, Megan, why don't we just start by breaking the ice a little bit? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What brings you here tonight?
So my name is Megan Earling. I'm a young adult romance author. I have 4 books out right now. I'm currently working on my fifth. I'm from Blackwood, New Jersey. That's where I am right now. I'm home for the weekend from school, and I have been writing since I was 7 years old. But I only started like professionally, like taking it seriously and writing when I was around 13. Was when I started writing my first book, which is here.
Excellent. And what is the title?
It's called The Steinfelds Throw a Winter Wedding.
Excellent. Excellent.
It's my first book.
Whew. And what was it like when, okay, so wait a minute. Let me back up. Let me back up. I'm getting ahead
Mhm.
of myself here. So, first of all, your first book. So, I'm curious about two things:
Yeah.
how you first got the idea and what it felt like the first time you held a copy of your first published book.
Okay. So I'm trying to remember if there was an exact time. I think the initial idea for this book in particular, the first time I remember wanting to write it was I had seen the 2019 version of Little Women in the movie theater. Uh,
Hmm.
I was 12 or 13. And I just remember like loving the like sibling and family dynamic that was in that. And I was like, I'm an only child, so I never really experienced that. Like I have friends that I would consider to be like my siblings and some of my closest people in my life, but I love just the sibling dynamic, and I really wanted to write about that because this book has like a big chaotic family. Everything's like always chaotic and fun and loud, and I really love that. And my cousin had just gotten married in 2018. So I had been in the wedding, I was the ring bearer. So I decided to write about a wedding. I just love like the romantic comedies where like it's just full of hijinks and like everything goes wrong and it's just pure chaos, but they just like make it through and fall in love along the way. So that's what inspired that. And oh my gosh, I holding it in my hands for the first time was amazing. Like I hadn't even started high school yet, and I was an author and I had a book, and it was amazing. I have a video of like my reaction, and I've like been going back and watching like old videos lately, and I was just like I was a child. Like it was just so amazing. It was so surreal. I think that's the word, surreal.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember when I held my first book, and that was exactly how it felt like because it really is, it's funny. It's like you think about getting a job you really wanted, right? You think about getting your dream job. Or rather, let me back up. You think about getting a good job. You think about the excitement you bring home when you can look somebody in the eye and say that, you succeeded at something so huge. And it's exciting,
Mhm.
and it's cause for
Yeah.
celebration, but when you get your dream job or you complete your dream objective or you publish your dream book, it's like, it really activates something in you that you've been holding on to since you were much younger, and you
Yeah.
just feel like a kid again. It's like, oh my goodness, I
Yes.
never
It's
knew
magical. The
that.
best.
Say again.
It's magical. It's the best.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it always is a magical moment. And it's like the first book, me personally, that I wrote isn't even a book that I would swear by where I'm at in my career now, but I'll never forget how it felt to hold that thing for the first time. You just, it's irreplaceable.
Yeah, for sure. I had this was the Seinfeld was the first book that I wrote and published, but I had actually had a post-apocalyptic book that I
Ooh.
had worked on. Yeah, it's in a closet, never to be seen again, but I wrote that it was like throughout my entire middle school career I had been working on it, and then when I finally finished it, I just like I wasn't happy with it, and it was just like unoriginal. Like, it was bad. It was very like middle school writing, and then I
Mhm.
felt like really lost, and I was like, where do I go from here? Like maybe writing isn't for me. And then I wrote the Steinfelds Throw a Winter Wedding. I came up with the idea during COVID. I was reading a ton of like romance novels, so I completely changed
Mm.
genres, and then I like felt this book made me fall in love with writing again. And yeah,
Mm.
it was a, so if that had like a special amount of in my heart when I held it for the first time, because it made me really made me fall back in love with writing.
Okay, so I had a question that I was going to ask next, but I really want
Mm-hmm.
to push that off for a minute because it's like, I recently learned because I was the type that would make all these future plans. I would outline,
Mhm.
I want this many books in this series, I want this many books in that series. I ADHD brain, I always had to keep building upon whatever I was doing, even though the job wasn't done yet. I would rope
Mhm.
myself into this, series. And I convinced myself that I was always going to write a certain thing. But very recently, I learned that when you discover a new genre, better yet, you discover that a genre speaks to you in a way you didn't expect. That is just
Mhm.
like stars and fireworks, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I picked up more and more young adult romance books, and I was like, this is what I was meant to be writing.
Mhm.
I don't think I would have gotten to that point if I hadn't written the other book. You know what I mean?
Oh man, we're off to a great start. I mean, everything you're sharing is already just giving us so much good,
Mm,
just insight into, the creative journey that we go
yeah,
on as authors. So we've got what inspired you to write your first novel? When and why did you decide you wanted to? Oh, I didn't ask.
yeah.
Um, so you kind of touched upon this earlier, but just in case I missed this
Mhm.
point, when and why did you decide? So like I knew that I was a writer before I knew I wanted to be published. So, like, was there a moment for you where you first realized, you know what? I could actually, you know, publish this and sell it, and strangers could pick up and read it. Was there a moment where you like came to that conclusion?
Yeah, I think during the writing process for the Steinfelds, I like kind of got into, I think it's called like AuthorTube. Like I'd been following other authors on YouTube, specifically other indie authors. And one in particular, her name's Sarah Sutton. She's a young adult indie romance author like me. And she was kind of like my role model throughout that whole thing. She was like showing me like, yeah, you can do this. We're around the same age. And so it was like, like you can do this, you can publish, because I knew that self-publishing existed and that
Hmm.
indie publishing existed, but I didn't know that like you can make a full-time career out of it. So she was really like the example for me where like, yeah, you can write books, you can publish them on Amazon. I learned a lot about Amazon KDP from her, and she was really just the one that showed me like I can do this, like, and I can make it through.
Awesome. So one of my later questions was, who are your writing role models? So in a way, it was
Hmm.
actually the role models and the people you admired that led you to the discovery that there was a place for you in the business.
Yeah, and this is like very far back, but when I was I think I was around 10 or 11, I was still in elementary school. I published like a short story on Amazon. So I knew a little bit about Amazon KDP, but it was not what I would say is my best work. It didn't have like a professional cover or anything. I was so young, I just wanted to get something out there.
Hmm.
But that was kind of my introduction to it too, but it had been so long that like so much had changed, like the form, like all of it had changed, and I was serious about it this time, so I wanted to make sure that I really had someone to follow who was like doing it as a job. And that was kind of when I was
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, I can, if I put the work in, because when you see like the vlogs and stuff, like how you see the work that goes into it, and like
Hmm.
kind of what you're getting into a little more versus just seeing the book online. So
Hmm.
I think that she really showed me that, yeah, like I can do it.
We
I
got another Sarah
Yeah.
fan in the comment section here. Sarah is
Yes,
fantastic. Been
she's
following her for
amazing.
years. That is actually Andrew. Andrew is the gentleman who's helping us behind the scenes right now.
Okay.
He is the freelance literary agent of One True Promotion, a very, very talented individual who has sold over 2,000 books single handedly. He has a very interesting story behind him. And
Awesome.
yes, he is, I can confirm, he is a big fan of Sarah. I haven't had the pleasure of checking her out yet. Mostly because I haven't really dabbled into romance books, but maybe I should.
Yeah.
So, do you recommend I check her stuff out?
Yes, she's great. I have all of her books. I've read pretty much all of them. She's great. She was a huge inspiration to me. I probably would not be where I am as quick as I got there without following her and just seeing the self-publishing
Mhm.
journey and then crafting my own. It's amazing.
Right. If you had to pick one, if you
Like one
had
of her
to,
books.
mm-hmm, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, I have to think. It would probably be Out of My League.
Okay,
That's
I've heard of
probably
that
my
one.
Yeah, that's probably it's her most popular, I think, but it's popular for a reason. It's probably my favorite one from her. I love it.
Could you sum up in like, in a couple lines, like what it is that stands out to you about it?
I just really loved the main character and her relationship with the love interest. Sarah's so good at crafting like amazing, sweet love interests, and I couldn't get enough. It was so good.
All right. Um, well, that's an interesting point that you brought up too. So, characters are very important to storytelling, as we know, especially in a story that's about two characters falling in love. So where do you get your ideas for characters? You mentioned earlier that you write a lot about siblings, but is there like a method or a formula, or is it different each time? Like,
I would say it's a little different each time. I like to make character profiles where I just kind of list out like their positive traits, their negative traits, maybe like a small description of what they look like. I think it's called like a fan cast. I usually have like an actor or like an actress in my head that kind of helps me just like picture them a little bit.
mm-hmm,
Trying to think if there's anything else. Like people in my real life, sometimes I'll be like, oh, this character kind of reminds me of this person, but it's usually not like intentional. It's usually after the fact where I'm going back and reading it and I'm like, oh yeah, this reminds me of like my this one person in my life or whatever. But
mm,
I'd say that character profiles are a big one, and just kind of trying to flesh them out as much as possible. I would say is my method, because I want them to, especially in a romance, like the main character and the love interest, you want them especially to feel developed and well thought out, but also the side characters too. I love making side characters.
mm. Yeah, I was going to say next, like, how do you go about ensuring that your characters can really resonate with your readers? What qualities in a character do you think really hook people in?
I think vulnerability is a
Mm,
big one, especially in romance. I feel like you can't write a romance without there being some level of vulnerability, because they eventually have to let their walls down in order to fall in love with the other person. And I
mhm,
think for me, it's a good sense of humor. I love writing characters that are like witty and have the banter, which I feel like is something else that's really unique to romance too, is the banter that you can have between the characters. I think those would probably be the main two. Something that makes them relatable, that like someone can read the book or like look at a character and be like, oh yeah, like I relate to them. They're cool.
absolutely. I agree with that. And, that was really a struggle for me for many years of my writing career. In fact, in the early draft for my first novel, Barker's Rules, which was a suspense thriller about a girl who's being held prisoner by a serial killer. So I had
Mhm.
created the killer as like an experiment of, how monstrous can I make a person? How can I take this person who appeared normal at first and then twist them to the point that they just do these unspeakable things and think these unspeakable thoughts. So pretty much
Mhm.
everybody that was reading it at first told me that character was very fleshed out and interesting to them. But I remember I needed a lot of help to flesh out the other character, who was the main point of view character. It was a challenge for me at first to make the point of view more than a point of view, and
Mhm.
more so than I thought it would be going in. But I learned through many years of doing this that sometimes it just takes practice.
Yeah, and some characters come more fully formed than others too. Like I've had times where I immediately know a character, I know their motivation, I know what they look like, I know their personality. And then
Hmm.
sometimes there's characters where I have to like sit with them for a while and really
Yes.
like figure them out, write out like their friends, their family, their love life, like anything that can help me just get in touch with who they are. And that comes when you write too. Like
Hmm.
I think the first draft, a lot of it is just getting to know your characters and their voice.
Absolutely. Definitely. We are getting some excellent engagement this evening. Megan, I can see
Yay!
that see, it's not just me. You've made a strong impression across the board, clearly. Thank you, everybody, for coming by. I want to encourage you again, if you're watching and enjoying, to leave us a public comment, ask us a question, anything you're curious about, anything you would like to share with our guests. We will definitely address your
Yes.
comments live. This is Drop a Line. Sarah, how are you? I'm Sarah. Megan, in my defense, I am a teacher, so
No,
I
you're
call out
good.
about 25 names a day, if that. How are you enjoying the program so far?
It's great. I think I told you before we came on, this was like a huge bucket list thing for me to like be on a podcast and a live one too. Like that's just so awesome. I know in my journalism class I took in high school, we had like a podcast and we were trained to like interview people, but I've never been the interviewee. So this is a
Yep.
cool experience. I love it.
It's more stressful, isn't it?
A little bit. I
Yeah.
don't know. I like it though. It's cool.
I mean, it's so funny because when I've been doing this for many years. We took off in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember it was slow going in the first 6 weeks or so. Just grabbing people we knew and arranging interviews with them and people we knew were watching us. But I remember around the 7th week, I got a total stranger, a lady named Ivy Now, who was from another country. And the thing
Mm-hmm.
just blew up after that. And I had all these
Oh wow.
people pouring in that I was just like, oh my goodness. And we had great momentum, of course, through the COVID year. And
Mm-hmm.
we had on somebody every single week. And what I learned is that keeping track of all the equipment. You might see me jittering on this side of the thing because I'm checking the camera, I'm checking the lighting, I'm checking the comments, I'm checking all these things while I'm
Yeah.
engaging with you. And you would think that's the most stressful thing, but sometimes when I'm the one being interviewed, it's all of a sudden it's like, uh, hi.
I know, like, sometimes I'm like trying to think, and I'm like, oh yeah, like what do I like? I'm scared that what I say is gonna be like bad, and people are gonna hate me.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not here. We've got a heart coming in from Nicole Susan. Hey, oh, that's my cousin. Hey, how you doing?
Oh, thank you,
Good to see
Nicole.
you. Thank you to see you. Another excellent podcast here. And we've got another comment here. I've been trying to try more romance. However, one of the things I'm seeing more is this argument over spice versus no spice. How do you feel about
Hmm.
spice in romance novels? And we actually touched upon this when we met, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Yep.
So, I write young adult, so I feel like spice isn't. I mean, it is sometimes, but it's more on the emotional side than like the parts, you know? I don't want to get you demonetized, but like, but I feel it. I mean, I don't mind it. I don't think as long as I stay in the YA genre, I don't think I would write it
Mhm.
anytime soon. But I do like it when it's necessary to the story and it's not all of a sudden like, oh my god, like why are they all of a sudden doing this? But I think
Mhm.
in romance, um, it works good, but in my genre, I don't usually write it. But I would be open to writing it if I were to transition into a more
Mhm.
adult genre. But I think it has its place definitely in some genres or subgenres of romance more than others. But I haven't really dipped my toes into that. Kissing is like as far as my characters usually go with that kind of thing.
Yeah, the thing that I find so interesting is that across the board, across, multiple genres, they tell you anything that stops the action should be cut from the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I like the way in your answer you kind of touched upon, if there's a reason, if it propels the
Mm-hmm.
action forward in some way, then, of course, we're open to anything.
Yeah.
But the other thing for me is that I remember, to take us back to the suspense thriller book again.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that I ever put anything super graphic in there, but it definitely had some violence and it definitely had some allusions to adult material
Yeah.
on in various chapters. And at that phase in my career, I was just like, I'm just going to write it the way it is, as gritty as it is, and as much detail as it is. I'm just going to, because I was obsessed with being authentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to one of my first events in my first years. A kid comes to my table with her father, a 7-year-old girl, and she picks it up. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, I mean, I would say, and I'm desperate to sell books, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
desperate. But I say, well, I would say this one is, 13 plus. And he goes, oh, she reads this kind of stuff all the time. I'm like, so the other thing that I
Yeah.
start thinking about going forward from experiences like that is reader experience, like who
Mm.
is this being marketed to, what's appropriate, what's going to resonate with them, with their population, where they're at in life, things like that. Do you think about all that?
I do, yeah, because The audience for YA, like people usually ask at events like what age range the books are, and I'd say like the youngest, because I was reading young adult and stuff a little above that when I was maybe like 10 or 11. So I'll say like I'll tell people like the youngest is maybe like 12, and then the oldest like 19 or 20s. Like it's a pretty broad range, but I would say I do think about that because like, some teenagers are doing those things and
Hmm.
they may be able to relate to it, but like I feel like a majority aren't. Like just from what I know about my friends and the people that I hung out with when I was in school, like we weren't all doing that.
Right.
So I do think about it, but I think it does influence my decision to maybe like leave the spice for the more adult books or the more like mature scenes. So,
Hmm. And the last thing that I wanted to great, I agree with you completely. Great
hmm
insights. But the last thing I wanted to touch on there, just to add one last layer, is
hmm
um, a big part of the debate. I think is that spice sells. Is that it's difficult to market your book if it doesn't have that element in it.
hmm
You don't seem to be having trouble with that at all. So my question is, in your opinion, what are the key selling points in the romance genre for you?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think there definitely is like an audience for specifically no spice romance. And I know for me, like when I open a book, especially when it's the one of the ones with like the cute illustrated covers and you open it and it's like graphic smut, and you're just like, whoa, okay, like take a
Right.
step back.
Right.
Um,
I've had
but
that happen. Had that happen to me. Like, oh, this is
yeah,
not what I expected at all. Okay.
yeah, it's happened. And I feel like there is definitely an audience between spice or no spice, just depending on what you're into. That can be a selling point. For me, it's usually like on the slightly lower spice side. And I think other selling points, I think, is just like a good dynamic between the characters, like, and
Mm,
also believability that these two people like and actually like each other. Like because no one, I feel like no one likes like insta love where it's just like they meet and then they're immediately in love. I feel like
mm,
the sometimes the slow burn is one of the best parts of a romance, at least for me. And then
mm.
because when they finally get together, you're like, yes, I'm so happy. And then I feel like again, the witty banter, it's great. It's definitely a selling point for me. And I try to put it in all my books to some degree. Like just the back and forth is the best.
And that's really refreshing to hear because when you're on TikTok, for instance, and you there appears to be this circulation of very niche, um, material. It's encouraging to hear your answer because you're pointing to themes that are timeless, things that are always helpful in stories, regardless of
hmm
genre, things that really appeal to the human side of the reader. So I'm happy to hear that um, that you found success in emphasizing those elements of a story.
Yeah. They're definitely what I look for as a reader. So I try like write what you want to read. So I try to incorporate that too as much as possible.
Hello, Jen Ferrante. I hope I'm saying that right. I love the young adult teenage romance. I'm thinking about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I look,
Yes.
grew up
I
with it,
love I love
grew up
it.
with them. That has been I haven't read them in a long time. That's been my read. I was just reading it before I got on this podcast, specifically that entry in the series. So this
Oh,
all
really?
feels like this is crazy. I swear, this is meant to be.
Yeah, I read Harry Potter. I think I was like in um fourth or fifth grade when I read them for the
Mhm.
first time. My cousin like insisted. She's like, "You have to read Harry Potter."
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's great.
Yeah. Which brings me back. Who are some of your other writing role models that have, stayed with you today?
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier because I was like, I feel like there's so many. Sarah is definitely one. One of the authors that inspired me to write my first novel and like get into the contemporary romance genre was Morgan Matson.
Mm,
I read her book, Save the Date. It's my favorite book. It was one of the first books that was like officially the young adult contemporary romance genre, and I fell in love with it. I've read so many of her books. And then I'm trying to think of others. I know these aren't like novelists, but Robert Kirkman was a huge one for
Mm.
me. The Walking Dead,
Yep.
Invincible. I love both of them. Like I've read all the Walking Dead comics, I've watched all the
Okay.
Invincible show. Like I'm never bored when he writes something. I feel like he's just
Nice.
so insightful and just a really good writer. And then Julian Fellows, he's the Downton Abbey writer. I
Mm.
learned so much about character from watching him and reading his writing. I have the screenplays, and I was just like reading through them, and just like the dialogue and the character development is so good. I'm trying to think if
Mm.
there's like any novelists.
Well, let's go to Robert Kirkman real quick. First of all,
Yeah, for
Walking
sure.
Dead. Didn't know that. I didn't. I see. This is how I need to de-genreify my brain because I didn't even think to ask you if you were into that. But I was a big fan of that back in the day myself. Okay,
It's amazing. Yeah.
books or show.
So I watched I think it's a complicated question because the show started off so strong, and then I
Mm.
feel like in the later seasons it kind of tipped off a little
Yeah.
bit, but I feel like the comics stayed good all the way through. So I'm gonna say the
Mm.
comics. But I do like the show. I have watched it.
Sad to say, I never read them.
Really? Oh my god, you need to. They're so good.
Okay, all right, I'll put that one on the list. It was because I hadn't, wasn't really collecting comics at the time, so it was a little. I
Mhm.
wasn't really sure how to go about it, but I am aware that people really enjoy those books. So I'll check that out.
Yeah,
Oh, more
they're really
questions.
good.
I'm seeing a huge
Ooh.
boom in age gap romances, which surprised me. Yeah, what's your
Mm.
take on that?
I haven't read any, or at least
Hmm.
I haven't read any that have been classified as that. Like I knew going into it that that's what it was. I feel like a majority of the books that I read, the characters are at least relatively close in age. I
Mm.
feel like probably the furthest like age gap that I've read might have been The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, who's also
Mhm.
another one of my writing role models. I love Ali Hazelwood. I think the one character was like a grad student and the other was a professor. So
Mm.
there's probably at least like a 10ish age gap there, but I don't think that's like what age gap romance is. I think it's usually a lot bigger when it's classified as an age gap romance, but
Mm.
I should read one. I haven't read any.
And Andrew is saying also Ken Follett, Bernard Cornwell, Terry Brooks, historical fantasy and fantasy all the way. Yes, that is Andrew's brand 100%. He's got some pretty interesting books on
Yeah.
the horizon. And I guess for me as well, when I was going through school, I was a big fan, of course, J.K. Rowling, as Harry Potter was a big part of my childhood. And I got into George R. R. Martin and J.R.R. Tolkien. And also, I was a big Victor Hugo guy going through college who did The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Mis and all that, which brings me to another question.
Yeah.
Who do you think does it better? Oh, what word am I looking for here? I'm trying to find words and freaking out right now. Thank you for watching Drop a Line. This is where I usually cover that up with promos. Do you think that previous century, classical, there it is, classical authors do romance best, or do you think modern authors do?
Ooh. I
Yeah,
feel
who
like
wins?
there's really great ones in both. I grew up on Jane Austen,
Yep,
like Pride and Prejudice, Persuasion. What's another one? There's
Sense
another
and
one.
Sensibility.
Yes, that one. And obvious. I don't know if Little Women is technically a romance, but there's definitely a romance in it. So like Louisa
Hmm.
May Alcott, Anne of Green Gables was a huge one for me. I read the first book, but I love the Anne with an E show. And then like the current day, I feel like there's so many too. I don't know. I feel like it's evolved for sure a lot.
Mm,
So
definitely.
I feel like there's a lot of good on both. I don't know if I could pick just one.
All right, I'm going to stop asking mean questions now. I'll do my best. I'll do my best. So we've been talking for 35 minutes already, if you can believe it.
Yeah, that's insane.
So
This went by so fast.
I know, right? And I really want to transition while we still have time more specifically into yourself, what your mission
Okay.
statement is and how we can support you. So I suppose, I saw four books on the table, but any book you'd like to discuss, like, what is it about? And, what are, um, your goals for it? And, what's just something you want us to know about the next book we buy from you?
So like I said, all of my books are young adult contemporary romances. The first one, The Steinfeld's Throw in a Wedding, is definitely the most like typical romantic comedy out of the four of them, I would say. The other three, they each have an established trope, like Run Away with Me, my second book, which I think is the one, isn't that the one you got, Run Away with Me?
Sure is. In fact, let me
Yeah.
see if I can snag it real quick. I don't
Yes.
usually do this, but I think we can make a small exception. There we go. I knew it was here. I knew it was here. Just moved into a new house.
Oh, nice.
Just moved into a new house. Can't remember where I put stuff, but here it is.
There it is. I love seeing like books in the wild. It's so fun.
Right? Absolutely. Yep. Oh, there's nothing more wild than here. But I'm very interested in diving into this one.
Yeah, so that one is like the forbidden love, Romeo and Juliet. I first like got the spark in my mind to write it after when I was a freshman in high school. I watched the 1996 version of Romeo and Juliet with Leo DiCaprio and Claire Danes,
Oh, fun, fun.
and I loved it. And that was the first thing that inspired me to write like the forbidden love trope. And
Hmm.
then Going Off Track was my third book. That one is like sports journalism, fake dating. It's a lot of fun. That one, I actually wrote a sports journalism article about my high school's boys track and field team. So that was kind of inspired by my experience with that, obviously with some embellishments with the romance and everything. And then my fourth book, the most recent one that just came out, is called Christmas is the Time Too. It's a Christmas book,
Mhm.
and it's friends to lovers, and it's the two main characters completing a Christmas themed bucket list before the main character has to leave to go to London for Christmas.
Very nice. Very nice.
So
Wow. So, so let's talk about, um, what are some of the challenges that come with either the writing process, the publishing process, and, is there a particular something that you've written that, is just really close to your heart in a special way?
um
It could be a scene, a character, a particular book.
yeah, so Christmas is a Time Too, my most recent book. It was written not long after my grandfather had passed away.
Mm,
So, and in the book, my main character Noelle is mourning the death of her dad,
mm,
and that I feel like that's probably like the most raw emotion that I've ever put into a book, because I was still grieving him, and I was still like, it was the first Christmas that at the time when I was writing it that we had celebrated without him. So I think that that just really inspired me, because like a lot of holiday like Christmas books are obviously on the more happy side because it's Christmas, everyone's happy, but that Christmas it just felt like
mm,
weird without him, and it felt wrong to be like celebrating when I wasn't going to see him. So I think that that book holds a special place in my heart, because my main goal with it was that I wanted people to know that like it's okay, like if the holidays are coming up and you're sad for whatever reason, like it's okay to be sad. Like not every Christmas is like super super happy.
mm.
And yeah, I think that book holds a really special place in my heart for that reason. Because I just put like all that emotion that I was feeling, I just really put it into her character and her grieving process, I would say.
Wow. First of all, my condolences
Thank
for
you.
your loss. That is really powerful. I feel like one thing you really highlight there is, art's ability to just have a conversation, a vulnerable conversation with the reader. And for somebody
Mhm.
to really, who may not have any outlet for their emotions or their grief or whatever it is that they're going through, being able to find that in something that you create. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That book was definitely like a safe space for me to kind of write those feelings and put them into a character, and obviously have it like have a happy ending because there's obviously a love story there. But yeah, I definitely think art can have so many emotions in it, and yeah, it can make you feel so many different things. And I know like I've when I've been going through stuff, there's been things that I've watched or read where it's just like,
Yeah,
like I feel seen. I feel like that's what I was trying to say. Like it
absolutely.
just makes you feel seen in such a great way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Andrew was saying in his, and I can vouch for him in his most recent book. After losing his grandmother, it allowed him to really get into the character and make her feel more real. That's the character, and helped him through it. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for me as well. Like I can remember when my grandmother passed. This was some time ago now, but I can remember for a period of well over a week just having constant nightmares and things that really first of all made me question my sanity a little, just a little tiny bit. Made great suspense thriller material, I'll say that. but but um,
Yeah.
but really just kind of confronted me with the fact that every night I was going to bed with some very troubled emotions. And I do remember really um, learning about the process of grief. I remember, there was a white hot stage, there was a cooler stage, there was, and the white hot stage, named for like white hot burns, is like where, you feel such pain from the wound being so recent that pretty much anything that touches you is going to sting a little bit.
Hmm.
And that's a very difficult phase for people to work through. And I definitely learned around that time that you can channel a lot of that into a piece of art, be it a
Yeah,
be it
for
a,
sure.
a painting, be it a poem, be it a whole novel. But it definitely can give you a place to just kind of store it, and cope with it.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that book helped a lot with that, especially because I remember I was writing some of like the heaviest scenes right around Christmas time, and I was
Mm,
like, okay, like we're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through this, and I'm
mhm.
really proud of what I put out, and I hope that it resonates. I think I even said in the acknowledgments like, if you lost somebody this holiday season, like I just hope that this makes it a little easier. But I'm really proud of what I put out with that book, especially.
Amen. All right. Well, I'll have to pick up that one too.
Yeah,
You've definitely sold it to me right here on this podcast. So
nice. Yeah.
that'll be my next purchase. But interesting. Okay. And do you have anything new on the horizon?
I do. I not like super soon. I'm working on the first draft of my fifth book. Um, it's like a dual timeline, which is something that I've always wanted to write, like the then and now, like flashbacks of a relationship. I've always wanted to write it. And I don't think it could have been written earlier on because I did not have the skill for it yet. But I feel like I'm ready to tackle it. And I only have about 20,000 ish, almost 30,000 words written in the draft. So it's like very, very early on, but
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. All right. I guess you can't reveal a title yet.
No,
Definitely.
I don't really have an official one yet. I have like a placeholder one that may or may not. I feel like it's a little too generic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna work on it. I feel like as I write more of the book, it'll come to me.
Absolutely. So, all right. So, I think one thing we really didn't get into yet is just any specifics about your process. What is your writing process? What are your tips and tricks?
Ooh. Um, I feel like it's been pretty consistent from book to book. Like I usually get an idea and then I have like a writing journal that I really just
Mm,
flesh everything out in. That's where I write like character profiles. I like to write like an elevator pitch kind of thing, like a blurb, but not a blurb, just so I have like some kind of idea of where the story is going. And then I'll like very lightly outline. I shouldn't say very lightly. I do have like a kind of made outline when I set out to write. I think I for going off track and Christmas is a time too. I know I think it's like the Save the Cat writes a book beat sheet. I think
mm,
that's what it's called, and it has
mhm.
like you can find it online. It has like all of the different story beats, and you can kind of follow it however you want. I felt like it's been helpful, especially for Christmas is a Time too. I think that's the book I used it with the most. And then I usually will write a first draft, however long that takes. This one's taking a little longer than usual because I'm in college and college is crazy.
Mm, remember
But
that.
yeah, I'll usually get a first draft written and then I'll like let it sit and then I'll do like some self editing, some editing, and then I'll dive into the second draft.
You have a very organized process.
I try to keep it like I'm very like type A, like organized kind of person. So I do try to keep that organized. I usually only do like three drafts unless something like really, really needs to be fixed. I feel like I've
Mm,
gotten, especially like the more books you write, I feel like I've gotten pretty good at getting down what I want to get down earlier in the process rather than later. Um, and I have like a cover designer. I usually reach out to her somewhere between like the second and the final draft. And then I have some people in my family that help me out with editing and stuff like that. And then I will
nice.
usually do the formatting by myself, which at first following Amazon KDP's formatting guide was crazy. I like almost had a mental breakdown trying to do the formatting.
Hmm.
And then from there, it's usually to publication, but I like to get up, like usually on the weekend, since I'm so crazy busy with school during the week. I usually like to get up on weekend mornings, usually around like 7-ish, because that's usually when I'm like the most creative. And then I just
Oh
write
yeah.
as much as I can. I try to get at least 1,000 words for every like writing session that I have, but I would say my main tip is just don't be hard on yourself if you don't meet that goal because sometimes the words just do not come and you
Yep.
can't force it because then it's just not as good as you want it to be.
Yeah, and what I've learned, and this was very recent, after a lot of change in my life, but after a couple of failures, I learned that the artistic process mimics life. Once I
Mm-hmm.
started getting my own life in order, and once I started having more fruitful, meaningful experiences, an example of that would be just getting more, just pouring more into my marriage that I have and straightening things out at home. you know, there would be, you just be sitting there doing something unrelated, and all of a sudden the words of a scene will just come to you because
Yes.
the experience that you're having just helps you to understand where the characters are at, and all of a sudden it's like boom, and it's like, oh, I gotta grab a pen.
Yes, that's what the Notes app is for. I use the Notes
Right.
app. That's a big part of my process too. I use the Notes app constantly, and usually it's like you said, it's like the dialogue that comes before like the complete scene. So it's kind of like almost like a script. Like I'll go in my Notes app and I'll start typing a scene. It'll be like so and so says something, and then it'll have like in parentheses like pauses or the actions that they're doing if I can imagine that before I write it. And then it's like a little mini almost like a little mini script or a screenplay, and then I go back and I like when I actually go to write the scene, I'll use that dialogue as kind of like a guide as what direction the scene is going in. That's really
Hmm.
helpful for me. I probably should have led with that, but that's a big part of my process too. You like sparked
Great.
it back in my mind. I was like, oh yeah.
Hmm. No, that's excellent. And Andrew is, really, he's asking my questions before I can even ask him. He said, "What are
Ooh.
some of the challenges that come with writing a dual timeline story? Is it hard to transition in and out of timelines?"
Um, I would say so far it's definitely been a little challenging. I think just the biggest challenge is continuity. Like making even like the tiniest little details
Mhm.
like are these two have these two characters met? Like have these two characters like
Hmm.
did this event
Flashback.
happen yet? And just trying to like keep your brain straight. Like
Yep.
I was
Oh
talking
yeah.
to my one friend about it and she was like, you're just all over the place with all these different like flashbacks and stuff. Even like the tiniest detail can sometimes slip into the wrong timeline or like my main character gets a haircut in the present timeline. So I'm like, wait, is her hair? And I'm like describing putting her hair up. I'm like, wait, is her hair long? Is her hair short? Because that's going to affect how you
Yep.
describe it.
Yep.
Um, and also, I think with this book in particular, in the main flashback timeline, the characters are 16 And then in the present day timeline, they're I think like 18 or 19. And I another reason I feel like I couldn't have written this before now is like I feel like I didn't understand how even at 18, I'm 18 now. Like I feel like I didn't really understand the difference in like your voice and how you act even in such a short gap between 16 and 19.
Mm,
So I think
yeah,
that's probably been the biggest struggle, just making sure like that they don't sound like the exact same person at 16 that they do at 19 because you're not the
yeah.
same person.
No, it's
So
so
much
true.
changes.
And I mean, we changed so much. I'm 32 now, and we changed so much. Going through um, just our lives. That when you go back to an old book, it's like, who wrote that? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, that's not. That character was. That was my this phase. But I don't talk like that anymore. I don't know who does. I don't know who would. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy. And even like the Runaway with Me had its third publication anniversary on the 9th, which was only like 2 days ago. And
Congratulations.
I posted like an old video that I didn't even know, I forgot I even recorded this. And I looked back on it and I was like, oh my God, I was literally a child. Like I'm a completely different person, even from 15 to now at 18. Like I look different. I talked a little different. Like I just wasn't as confident in myself. Like it's crazy. And I feel like that really helped me see like, oh yeah, these characters, their voice cannot be the same as at
Mm,
16 as it is at 19 because they've lived so much life, even if it's even only like 2 or 3 years. You still change so
absolutely.
much in that time.
Absolutely. You got that video's got fans. Jennifer, I
Yes.
saw that video. Light years apart.
It's crazy. I initially I was like, do I even want to post this? Like it's so, like my bangs era. I was like, this is so embarrassing, but I was like, it's just too good. I have to post it.
Listen, don't be ashamed of that because, I mean, it's a struggle for people, especially at your age. It's a struggle for most people to just put themselves out there. So I honestly think that, it really just amazes me just since, knowing you for a little bit, how, motivated you are to just get out there and engage. Even just, putting the story straight through to publication is a form of engaging. Most people are scared to do it, especially when they're young. I mean, where does all that tenacity come from, you think?
um I think mainly like I'm gonna give a shout out to my parents and just like my entire family because they've always been so supportive and like
Hmm.
helping motivate me even when I'm feeling like I can't do it because it is scary. Like even after book four, like every time I put something out, I'm still like a little. There's still a part of you that's a little scared, and I feel like you kind of need that extra support to kind of help like uplift you and show like yeah you did this before, like look at what you've already done, like you can do it.
Mm,
And I think that kind of helps motivate me and also like just my own desire, like I've always wanted to be a writer since I was like a little kid. This is my dream. So I think that kind of helps me too, like even when I'm struggling or I'm like I can't do this anymore, like I don't know how I'm going to get this chapter done, I like to go back and look. I feel like one of the things about being so young and doing this is like you really get to see like when you look back at your social media and stuff like how much you've grown. And I just love to go back and like look at those old release day pictures and everything and be like that's who I'm doing it for, like that younger version of me that had that big dream, like I want to keep it going.
incredible. I love it. I love hearing about, people's stories. That was a big reason why I started the author interview show. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, Megan, it's been great talking to you. We are at just shy of 55 minutes now. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you're eager to discuss?
um,
Anything you'd like to share with our audience? Any advice that you have? Any questions that you have?
um, I think in terms of advice, I think my main thing would be like you're never too young to start. Like I think
Mm,
I one of the I think I initially thought even when I was like 13, I had the Steinfelds written. I was like, I feel like I'm too young. Like I because I remember I initially wanted to go through querying and I thought like people aren't going to take me seriously because I'm a child, you know what I mean?
mm,
So I think don't let anyone discourage you. Not just for your age, like for any reason. Don't let anyone discourage you from going after what you want because you never know where it can lead. Like I probably wouldn't have the major. Like I'm majoring in writing arts at Rowan. Like I probably wouldn't have found that I wanted to do that or like have that major if I hadn't discovered so young what I wanted to do. And I was
Mm,
like so sure. And I think that that's really cool. And if someone had told me like, oh, you're too young to do that, like you can't, you have to wait. You have to wait until you have
mhm.
more whatever, like wait until you're older to publish. I might have been a little more discouraged. But I think since everyone was so supportive of me, I think that's the main reason that I decided to take the plunge so young. So that's like my main advice. Like don't let anyone tell you that
That's
you're
right.
too young to go after what you want. Cause like kids today are doing so much awesome stuff and not just writing, like acting or any
Yep.
kind of art. And I just think it's really inspiring.
Yeah. And also, just to add to that, if you come, if you didn't have that support, growing up, but you run afoul of somebody who is very supportive of you, hold on to that person. Keep them
Yes.
in your family, keep them in your circle, share your manuscripts with them, because believe me, it goes a long way, even if you're just encountering it for the first time.
Yes, I've had not just my family, like I've had friends, even teachers over the years. I've been lucky. I've had so many amazing teachers who have really helped encourage me because when I was in school, I was like nervous to talk about it because I didn't want to seem like I was like bragging or trying to show off like look at me, I have all these books and all that. But the teachers that I did kind of develop a close enough relationship with to tell, they were so supportive and they were so amazing, and I don't think I would be here without them either.
Hmm. Oh man, wow, that's really inspiring to hear about. I'm glad that met all the people that you did, and it's nice to know that there's people out there that are still encouraging our youth to be great. That's an
Yes.
example that I will try to follow. That takes care of my line of questioning. How
Awesome.
was your
Yeah.
experience this evening?
It was great. It's like I said, bucket list item like accomplished. This was so
Accomplished.
fun.
And I'll tell you what, we've had interviews. I've done a lot of interviews over the past 4 years, and every now and then you get one that's just a dud. You keep waiting for those views to come in, but they're not coming in. There's no engagement in the comment sections, so you feel like you're just running a camera on a private conversation. And it can get a
Yeah.
little awkward at times. It's like, well, let's see if anybody watches this thing, but this was just to encourage you, since this is your first time. This was a very nicely attended episode, better than we've had in a few weeks.
Oh, that's
And
great to hear.
yeah, and I think it was very meaningful, especially for the people that were here to listen to you, because you really do give excellent, just excellent insight and advice when it comes to, you know, what the creative process is really here for. It's here for us, it's here for our lives, for vulnerability, for having a safe space. I mean, we
Yes, all
touched
those
upon a lot
things
of
and
great things.
more.
Yeah, we touched upon a lot of great things in this interview.
Yeah.
um, so how can we support you?
You can follow me on my social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I have a YouTube channel that I like barely upload. I think I have like 2 videos on there, but you can subscribe to that. Follow me on any of my social medias. Yeah, it's author Megan Earling for everything that I'm on. You can check out my books. They're all 4 of them are available on Amazon. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Leave a review if you've read the
Yes.
books. Reviews are huge for indie authors. I
Oh,
feel like weird like asking like, can you please review it? Like please just rate the stars on like Goodreads or whatever. But reviews are huge for indie authors. They help us get like boosted up in the algorithms, so that our books can reach more readers, and that's obviously what we're here for. It's a huge thing.
hmm.
So leave a review. You can follow me. Again, check out my books. I see like all the links in the description. Thank you.
Yep, that's just the link to buy your most recent book, Christmas is
Yeah.
the Time Too. And it posted multiple times because we're streaming on multiple platforms.
Okay.
So, but yes, the link to buy is right in the comment section. So if you would like to support Megan, we've made it easy for you. You could just click the link right
Yes.
on this video and go and explore her work. You could also follow her at these listed pages. And yeah, Megan, thank you so much for coming on. It's always great when we can, just meet up with somebody and talk to them and just, story share.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I would love to come back. I feel like there's so much other stuff to talk about, like with writing, and you can just go on and on and on. It's great.
Well, one true, really, seriously, amen to that. One True Promotion is here for you. We're here to support you when you need us. For those who are just hearing about us for the first time, One True Promotion is an alliance of authors that are dedicated to supporting the indie community. We're all indie authors. We're all editors. We're all publishers. We are all, experienced. And I know that my guy Andrew, who's running tech for us this evening, has sold over 2,000 books on his own just by using the tried and tested strategies of
That's
things
awesome.
like Amazon Ad School and some other interesting tactics as well. I will be attending the Philadelphia Writers Conference at the end of this month, which I am very, very excited about. This will be my first foray into traditional publishing. So, and yeah, One True Promotion, we have a lot of talented people here, and anytime, Megan, you would like an interview, we're here for you. We can get together, we can schedule it, we
Yeah.
can promote it, and we can come on and just talk about more stuff.
Yeah, I would love that. Also, the expo thing made me remember. I do have a few events coming up.
Right
If you want
away.
to come buy a book in person, I'll sign it for you. Any color Sharpie you want. I have like a whole bag of
She
little
does.
Sharpies. He's seen
Yep.
it, he knows. I'll be at the Monroe Township Craft Fair in Williamstown. That one's on May 10th. I'll be at the Collingswood Book Festival, which I just found out about like a couple days ago. I'm super
Yeah.
excited for that. And then I'm planning to come back to the Mantua Craft Fair in the fall because I just
We'll be
learned that they
there as
have
well. Yeah.
a fall one. So,
Oh, no, that is not the correct spelling. That is missing a letter, so we will ignore that, folks, if you please. Yep. So I think that we're due to be at a couple of those events as well, if I'm remembering our calendar right. So we'll probably see you there.
yes, I'll come say hi.
Excellent, excellent. So will we. Well, everybody definitely support Megan. She's a great author. She's got a lot of great books out. And that pretty much concludes our interview for tonight. So, Megan, again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. It was great. It's great to come on and chat. I'm always ready. I'm always up for a good chat. Like just
You
sitting here
got it.
talking.
You got it. All right. Well, everybody, that concludes our interview for this evening. So, thank you so much for watching. We're going to play you out with this little outro. It's a little outdated, but we're going to play it anyway. Megan, you have a great night.
Thanks, you too. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.